Welcome back to Real Estate Today. I'm Elliot Koolik of Koolik Group Realty. Now that we've talked about how to inspect and what are the tools that we use, I have Ian Berkowitz with us. He just recently bought a home and he had a situation related to mold, and I want to just find out kind of what happened with him. So Ian, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Elliot. Thanks for having me.
Ian, tell everybody at home what you recently experienced, and I know you're a corporate attorney, so you're pretty thorough. So
we dealt with a situation. We sort of found our dream house. It was a perfect situation, perfect property.
Right.
We did a standard inspection. The inspector came back and told us that on the air handler was a little bit of mold. Mm-hmm. From there, we did a little further investigation. And
did it get you nervous as soon as they mentioned mold?
Well, sure. It's the kind of thing where people always get nervous. I mean,
right.
So we knew where to go and what to do, because I had, in my experience, known about situations like this as an attorney. So we contacted certified mold inspectors to come in and do a full battery on the house. They came in and took air samples. They did samples from the paint on the walls. They actually dug into the sheetrock and took swabs behind, and then sent it out to a lab. And we got a report back, and that report gave us all of the information that we needed to know exactly what the story was.
Now, how did you interpret the report? I mean, a lot of times, in my experience, and I see this all the time, especially recently, we get the report back, and it obviously has all these big words, the different spores and the different types of mold and the counts of the spores, which certainly is very intimidating. Did you find that your inspector, whoever you used, did they help you interpret it?
Well, our remediator and also our inspector came in, and when we got the written report, it was about 9 or 10 pages, but it had a definition section, and it talked about the different types of mold and the purposes and the types of things that it may have an effect on or not an effect on.
Right.
It also then had, which was very important, a protocol as far as how the house needed to be cleaned, what needed to be done, what areas need to be dealt with, identifying those kinds of areas and putting it all together. And an estimate. They didn't specifically give us a dollar figure because his goal was just to tell us exactly what needed to be done and how it needed to be remediated. Then we had to contact someone who does remediation work,
right,
who didn't have a vested interest and didn't have a conflict. They then came in, gave us an estimate as far as what it was going to take to make the house clean.
Okay, so you do all of this work, you get the report, you get an estimate, you now go to the seller.
Right.
And I guess, was there a realtor involved?
There were, both realtors on both sides.
And what were they saying to you? They're saying, okay, you're doing all this extensive testing. I'm sure the situation's getting a little contentious because, it's a new topic. There's a lot of misinformation on how to handle these real issues.
Right.
So you deliver the report, and what happens?
Our best case scenario, what we were hoping for, is a responsible number in order to deal with the work and getting it done so that the house can get a clean bill of health.
So the work could have been done?
Could have been done, sure.
And you would have been satisfied?
Absolutely.
Okay, so now, did you feel like the seller looked at this or their realtor and said, you're crazy, this is, it shouldn't be this, or were they receptive to trying to get it resolved?
In our case, this whole thing was surprising to them. They had young kids as well as me having young kids as well. They felt that their kids were healthy, they were living in the house, it couldn't have been that big of an issue.
Right.
The realtor then explained to them that yes, there is an issue here, but the question became, what was it worth to them in order to deal with making the house able to be presented?
Because I would think in your eyes, it's a real issue. It clearly is a real issue,
for
no
anyone.
matter how, right. So whether they resolve, a lot of times when I have a situation where, there's a problem with a house, let's say it's not related to mold, if it's a real issue, whether they resolve it with this customer or with a different customer, they need to resolve it. So did they feel like they were going to resolve, did they resolve it to your satisfaction? This is the first question.
Unfortunately, the deal fell apart because of it, and primarily was an economic issue. We knew economically what it would take. We had even 3 estimates so that it didn't look like we were just going for the high guy to come up with what it would take to repair. As you know, all of the standard contracts have a percentage, usually 1.5%, and their attitude was if something falls within that 1.5%, they would deal with it.
But the truth is, when you look at those, and you're an attorney, when you look at the contracts, the standard inspections for structural and termites really don't address mold.
Not at all.
Right. So now what a lot of the large companies and even some of the smaller real estate companies do is, because this issue is so, I'm not saying contentious, but it's a new issue, they have a separate rider. It's an as-is rider that usually has a threshold that the sellers are responsible to fix, and usually they set at a low amount, which truly gives the buyer the ability to back out, and I imagine that was the case.
Well, one of the things for us is that there was no meeting of the minds as far as being able to remediate. We were worlds apart price-wise, but also one of the things that people need to know about, and we needed to know about, is mortgage companies and lenders are looking at this issue as well.
Right.
They're concerned about it because they don't want to get stuck with a situation where they're insuring something that's going to be a problem,
right,
or they're going to be financing something that's going to be a problem. Insurance companies, when we were trying to get insurance for the place, the insurance company was asking for some kind of a disclosure when it comes to mold. So everyone seems to be getting on the topic, and even all of the other service providers that you need in a transaction, like we needed, an insurance company, finance company, they were all asking those questions as well, because it is, especially down here in Florida, a big issue.
You know, we used to have the same issue years ago with, radon years and years ago, more up north, but we used to have the same issues with termites. And if you heard a house had termites, you know, it was, forget it, I'm not buying that house. And now, as information and people got educated and people addressed the issue properly with level heads, and they learned how to resolve those type of situations, you know, you have termites, you do certain things, you can tent the house, you can do subterranean type of treatments, and it's never been an issue. And I think we're going to look back on this, you know, time frame, and I think people will say, you know, mold is part of the way we live, and people are educated about it, and this is how you resolve it, and you can remediate it, and it's not a problem. And it'll be part of the process.
I agree, and there's also things that people can do on a daily basis. There's equipment that they can get for their air handler. There are inspections that you can do on a regular basis. I mean, you know, just because you buy a house, it's like a car. You buy a car, you're trying to deal making sure that that gets maintained properly. Same thing with your house. If you do things along the way as you're a homeowner, you'll be okay, and you shouldn't have any problem.
Well, I think that's a fair statement. So I don't think we should give the message to everybody at home is, if you have mold, you know, forget it. I think that, as I said before, with education and proper maintenance and taking care of your home, which, you know, everyone takes care of it, and they don't service their ACs regularly. And you know, Roy brought out a point earlier in our segment that, you know, the outside and the inside, you know, you have a hot environment and a cool environment, and sometimes they don't coexist, and it creates, you know, moisture, and moisture leads to mold. So I think that you know, this has been great. I'm really glad. I'm sad and glad. I'm sad that you didn't get that house, but I'm glad that you came to the show and explained to everybody about mold, and I think it'll be very useful for everybody.
Elliot, thanks for having me.
Thanks. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Real Estate Today. You know, 4 letters have been the scariest thing in the real estate industry over the past year, and it's M-O-L-D, mold. There's a lot of misinformation, a lot of misconceptions about mold, and I think with Roy's help of Engineering Technologies of America and Ian explaining to us, you know, his experiences with mold, and he really handled it in a level-headed way, I think we are all a little more educated about what are the situations surrounding mold. It is a real issue. There are real consequences, but I think that if you use this information, and I've really certainly learned a lot when you're buying or selling, I think we'll all be better off. So I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Real Estate Today.